This is the Gerry Callahan Show.
Oh, man, I am a little tired today. I got to admit, Karan, a little hungover. It was a long night. It was a crazy night. I never got invited to the Met Gala before. It was my first time going to the Met Gala, but it was fun. I had $30,000. What else was I going to do with it, right? I bought a ticket, went by myself. I wasn't going to spend $60,000 to take a date.
No, of course not.
And I got to meet all the stars. Gigi Hadid, I met all the Kardashians, and of course AOC, the single least self-aware human being on planet Earth, the single biggest hypocrite, the single dumbest person ever elected to Congress. All you BU grads, hang your head in shame. This woman has an economics degree, I believe, from Boston University.
That's what I hear.
And she goes, obviously all the time whining, complaining about how the rich don't pay their fair share. And we will get to that. She's right. The rich don't pay their fair share. They pay much, much more than their fair share. The system is not fair. It does not tax the lower 50% enough. It taxes the top 1% much too much. These people pay. And by the way, it's going to get worse. The latest proposal from Democrats would mean rich people in New York City pay 60% of their pay of their income in taxes. 60. It's totally unfair. She's right. But if you missed it, AOC wore a gown to the Met Gala. And the Met Gala is just not the same since Tom Brady and Giselle can't attend anymore. I guess they could. It was a Monday. She probably on Tuesday they usually have off. He could have jetted up to New York. He probably wanted to. Brady loves fashion.
He does.
God knows Giselle does. But they did not make an appearance, and AOC stole the show. If you haven't seen it, with a gown worth, I don't know, probably like $50,000. And on it was written, "Tax the rich." And everyone had a good chuckle at that. Tax the rich at the single most decadent, gaudy event where it costs $30,000 for one ticket, $275,000 for a table. Now, I assume her campaign pays for it or some donor. I'm sure this. If you're AOC, it doesn't matter. You could take bags full of cash. Nobody's ever going to call you out. No one's ever going to investigate you.
Don't they have to report that though?
Reporting.
I guess not.
That's for chumps.
I'm sorry.
That's for chumps.
I'm just trying to live by the rules.
AOC doesn't care about the rules.
No.
She can do what she wants. And she was having a lot of fun hanging with the one of the Kardashian. I don't even know which Kardashian.
I don't know.
Or Jenner. One of those bimbos was hanging with AOC. She was hanging with everybody there who were all filthy rich, and they just thought it was hilarious. Tax the rich. This is a woman who a couple months ago complained on Twitter about the conditions of her grandmother's, her Abuela's apartment in Puerto Rico. The roof was leaking. It was a dump. And Matt Walsh, the Daily Wire guy, started a GoFundMe for AOC's Abuela, and he raised like, I don't know, what was it, like a couple $100,000 in like a couple hours to fix up the apartment of AOC. AOC, who makes $175,000 a year and has 10 million followers on Twitter, and could do a speech tomorrow and take that money and buy her Abuela a new apartment, a new condo on Puerto Rico, but that wouldn't work for her. That's not how that works. She doesn't care about her Abuela. She cares about advancing socialism. And she was upset at this stunt by Matt Walsh. Didn't take the money.
Six figures, by the way, over 100,000.
100,000, and it was like in an hour or something.
Yes.
And they had more than enough to fix the roof and fix the apartment up, but they rejected it. AOC's family said, "We don't want it." So GoFundMe returned all the money to everybody, so that if the government doesn't pay for it, she has no interest in it. One of the great hypocrites in Congress, and one of the great dummies ever to wield that kind of power.
She could have fed a lot of homeless people in New York with that money.
That's true. She sure could have. How much do you think the dress cost?
Oh, I mean,
Thousands,
tens of thousands.
These
probably.
people are all repulsive, including, by the way, Pete, there's a whole bunch of them. If you haven't been online, if you haven't been watching, they have the runway thing where the media is allowed to take their pictures as they show up. They're not allowed to go in and see what's going on. But what do you think happens at something that costs $30,000? I assume the food is really, really good, except it's got to be sustainable and vegan. And it's got to be all kinds of rules for these elitists. But what do you get for $30,000? There's no
watch people I don't care about talk, I guess. I don't know.
Are there speeches? What do you suppose you would get for 30 grand? But whatever. Or 275 grand. You get to schmooze, you get to be seen. And I don't know why this bothers me. I hate Pete Davidson. Is so obnoxious. There's a picture of Pete Davidson or a video of him showing up at the gala. He calls it in his slutty nun outfit. He's wearing a dress, a black dress with a white sport coat over it, and like a priest's collar. It looks like a priest's collar. He's got black like boots and black socks, and he looks like an absolute fool. It looks like it looks like Halloween. And he's asked about it, and he says it's a tribute to his late father, who, as we all know, died on 9/11. He was a firefighter. He never says how or why. Like I'm reading the story. What makes a guy wearing a slutty nun outfit, what makes that a tribute to victims? He says it's a tribute to his father and other victims on 9/11. But you're looking at it right now. There's no explanation. There's nothing on it that says 9/11 or never forget. There's no indication of what makes that tribute to victims or heroes on 9/11.
I think he's just mocking the event, which I'm fine with. Mock it.
So you think that's what it is?
I think so.
Okay. Yeah. Sometimes I don't hate him. Other times I do. I guess he does his job.
Yeah, he does.
And he's, a marginally talented guy who sucks at stand-up, but occasionally he has an appearance on SNL that'll make you chuckle, which is more than you could say for most of the people on SNL. But so you think he's mocking it? Okay, good. By the way, what is missing in all the pictures you've been looking at this morning from the Met Gala? All the pictures of all the stars and celebrities, and there's what's the Juno actress's name? Elliot Page.
Elliot Page. Yep.
Used to be Ellen. Now
yep.
It's Elliot. Looks like she looks like a 12-year-old boy now. I guess she's a boy now, but she's not 12, and she's got a suit on. But all the stars. What's missing from every scene you've seen on the?
It's the cultist flag.
No. Right there. The cult. It is amazing that we still keep up this mask theater. When you see, you see like an appearance the other day on the 9/11 tribute in I think it was in New York, and there's Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and Joe Biden, and none of them is masked up, not one. And then they see the cameras coming, or they're told this is going to be the televised portion of the program. Boom, the masks come out.
Oh,
it has nothing to do with public health. I mean, anyone who still thinks it does is hopeless. Like if you still think masks matter, if you still think children on the bus or children on the playground should wear masks, then you haven't been watching the NFL or college football, because the people, there's 100,000 people in every stadium and not one person wearing a mask. Players, coaches, they're all done with this mask stuff.
People are really conditioned to it too. I was talking to a buddy yesterday whose wife had a bunch of people over for like a wedding or a baby shower or something, or maybe it's a wedding event, and none of them were wearing masks, but they all had them either on their wrist or around their ear or something. They just need to show off their colors. They're like a gang.
Yes, and you got to be ready in case you have to virtue signal at the drop of a hat. But there's a great little meme out there where these kids are like in school and they're like 6 years old and they're all masked up and depressed looking. And at the same time, down the street, there's this huge event, a concert or a game with, 70,000 people unmasked. So why would you ever do that to children? As we've pointed out many times, it's child abuse. It's just theater. We'll get to the latest from Flip Flop Fauci, the guy who financed the pandemic, the guy who get the wheels in motion on the worldwide pandemic that's killed 4 million people. He still makes daily TV appearances. He just never gets asked about things that matter. It's maddening. It's maddening that anybody still listens to him, that anybody thinks that he is on the level. Now he wants to mandate vaccine mandates to fly on a plane. So that's coming. That's going to work, by the way. As Turtle Boy said, the one thing that would get him, that might get him vaccinated, he said this before Biden's insane speech on Thursday. So he may have changed his mind. Now he's digging in his heels. But that is something. If you can't go anywhere, like you can't get on a plane, what are you going to do? I mean, you can't. If you're going to go to Florida, you're going to drive. You're
I guess so. Yeah.
You're going to go to Europe. What are you going to take a boat?
That seems
if
to be the only
go
option.
somewhere, like the rest of your life, if you want to go somewhere, then they're going to. I think that will work. I mean, I grudgingly give them credit. That's one thing that's going to force people to get the jab. But we had a lot going on today, Carano. A lot to get to. It's California Recall Day. I have a bad feeling about it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But we'll get the latest. Biden's out there. Biden's out there right now, which is a good sign, which is a sign of desperation, but it's also a weird strategy. Like, does it really matter? Biden's going to convince anyone to
I don't know.
vote?
Do people actually like him? I don't know. I can't grasp that.
His approval ratings are in the toilet. The Afghan withdrawal was the biggest foreign policy disaster in the history of this country. He is thoroughly corrupt. We know why he pulled out of Afghanistan. We know why 13 service people died and hundreds of locals died. We know why, so we could have a photo up. It all backfired. I mean, we know how. We know he's just one misstep after another. Why would you think he would have any, coattails out there anywhere in California, anywhere? Why would anyone listen to a word this guy says at this point? He is just so weak and so compromised. I can't imagine. I guess they go by polls. I guess I don't know. Maybe the suburban women or something still listen to him. It's hard to believe that he could convince anybody. The people who like those suburban women, they're already all in on Gavin Newsom, right? He's handsome, right? He's handsome. And, he is compassionate and he's empathetic, unlike Larry Elder, the black face of white supremacy. But we'll get to that. We got a lot to get to today on the Callahan show.
Yes.
We got to talk to you. I got to talk to you about your what you did yesterday. I didn't even all the work you did on to get us up and going on locals.
It's my pleasure to do.
Where's all the money, by the way? Did you take it?
Yep.
Good. But we'll get to that, and we'll get to a man with real courage, guy I don't always agree with, but Piers Morgan is a guy who has real. I'm not because he walked off the job, quit his job on principle. That was kind of weak, but he came out and he grabbed the third rail, man, and he's ready to not back down to the woke mob. He's all in on saying trans women should not be allowed to beat up biological women. I know it's controversial.
That is, yes.
But we'll get to it. And I might even give you my opinion on that. We can do that now.
That never happens.
We're on locals. We're on locals. They can't get us now. We're going to do that. I'm going to tell you my opinion on trans women beating up biological women.
Can't wait.
On today's Callahan Show, brought to you as always by DCU. Do you love your car but hate your car payment? No problem. Refinance your car today with DCU and they can help lower your monthly payment, lower your interest rate, or both. Applying is easy and their loan experts will help you find the loan term and the payment that fits into your budget. Get out of that high rate loan and get the interest rate and the payment you deserve from DCU. Learn more and apply today at dcu.org/refinance. Insured by NCUA, membership required. All right, before we get to Piers Morgan, I do want to mention this hearing. You know what amazes me? That Tony Blinken, the Secretary of State, still has a job. To me, it seems, as someone pointed out the other day brilliantly, Navy, Annapolis, fired their offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator after 2 games. He was so bad. So if you're in the Navy and you're a coach and you don't win a game, you lose your job.
Yeah.
If you're in the military and you lose a war, the longest war in this country's history, if you lose $85 billion in advanced U.S. weaponry if you lose 13 service people unnecessarily, so the president could potentially have a photo op, nobody loses a job. You lose a job for losing a game. You don't lose a job. Nobody loses a job for losing a war. It's remarkable the standards, the low bar we have for these people, for these incompetent, corrupt fools. And this was so bad to me. Blinken is so bad on his feet. He's so bad in front of the cameras. He's so bad when put on the spot. It amazes me that he ever got anywhere in life. Forget, getting to the top, to the Secretary of State. He's in the cabinet. He's representing this country. But he's in D.C., I believe, and he refuses to appear before Congress and for a hearing under oath. He does it remotely. This is a guy who was, in the Hamptons when 13 service people were blown up, essentially for him, and Biden for their plan, their diabolical plan to withdraw and appear heroic on 9/11. It backfired, obviously, but he couldn't appear before Congress. He got roasted pretty good by some congressmen because he's so incompetent and he's so inarticulate. But he mentioned at one point in this hearing, I believe, that we're sending, is it 64 million? 64 million, by the way. It's a fraction of what we've already given them. But I see these tweets or see this news, and I have to read it twice. It just blows my mind, Carano, that anybody, anywhere, I don't care whatever liberal you are, how much of a Biden rump swab you are, or how much, I don't care if you're Tony Blinken's best friend. You play the devil's advocate. Tell me the case for sending financial assistance, financial aid, support to the Taliban.
Well, I know why the federal government is doing this, because they're trying to, I think two things. They're trying to make sure the Taliban cooperates a little bit, but also I think they're going to have to deliver this aid because some would be in food and supplies and things. So maybe it's a way of getting U.S. personnel in the country so they can kind of check around a little bit.
I think we're going to put little recording devices.
You're asking me to defend this.
It's remarkable.
It's impossible.
And you know what? If they did this secretly, I guess I wouldn't blame them, because there is nothing I've ever seen any administration do publicly that would be less popular. It is amazing. These are the people we've been fighting for 20 years. These are the people who harbored the terrorists, who planned 9/11, who carried out 9/11, and then fought us, and then killed American soldiers and Marines, 2,500 of them, blew them up, shot them, killed them. These are the people who beat women, who behead police officers, who abuse children. These are evil, rotten, terrible human beings. And they just beat us in a war with, no 75,000 strong, no weapons, no nothing, no planes, no night vision goggles till we gave it to them. And this ultimate embarrassment of leaving with our tail between our legs, giving them an air base, giving them an embassy, giving them everything, giving them planes and helicopters and guns, that wasn't enough. And you wait like 2 weeks and you say, yeah, we're going to send them money, or as you point out, supplies, food, assistance. I don't care what it means strategically. If it keeps them from hurting the American citizens behind, maybe it's part of the deal. Don't hurt the American citizens. We'll give you money, but at some point, you have to look in the eye the parents who've lost kids, sons, daughters. I mean, they buried the Marine
from Lawrence.
From Lawrence, Johanny Rosario, is that the name? Her name is, I know she's got a hyphenated last name, but from Lawrence yesterday, this 25-year-old hero, this obviously this great young American woman. And the same day you're burying her, you're saying, we're going to give money to the people who essentially killed her. I mean, you could say it was ISIS, but Taliban was working security, and they let the suicide bomber through, and they've been protecting jihadists and suicide bombers and extremists for 20 years or more. and suddenly we're going to pretend we're allies. It's madness. It's utter madness, which is why I don't get why we're not, instead of having a hearing with Blinken, why are we not impeaching Blinken? Why are we not impeaching Biden? This is insane.
I mean, why wouldn't you just tell the Taliban, hey, listen, why don't you just sell 2 of the planes and get that 64 million?
How about we buy them back from you?
Right.
We buy our Black Hawks.
At least we get something.
I mean, the idea, honestly, and I guess you'd make the case like you did and said, it's for the children. It's for the women. They need food. They need supplies. They need medical supplies. But at what point do you say, we're done? We're done. We've pulled out. Everyone should be happy. We gave them billions. It was a mess. It was done all wrong because of Biden's incompetence or Biden's selfishness of saying, I want to make me look good. But in the end, when it's over, you say, let's give them more money. It's just utter insanity. And which is why I don't think having Biden go out there, by the way, go out to California and give a typical stuttering, doddering, awkward, uncomfortable Biden speech where he was coughing and sniffing and losing his that's supposed to inspire people to go out and vote for Gavin Newsom. Here's how I've resolved it in my mind. I had high hopes. Larry Elder seems to be a great candidate for governor. He's smart. He's articulate. Obviously writes a column, does a radio show. He's from California. He grew up poor. He's black. He's a black white supremacist, according to the LA Times, but he was going to shake, the foundation of that state, shake it to its core and shake things up, and really made these establishment hacks nervous. Now they got out. There was very little chance of him actually winning. Obviously, if he went head to head with Newsom, he'd get trounced. There's just so many Democrats out there, socialists, liberals. They don't care that the state is in a state of disrepair, that the homelessness and crime is out of control, that people are fleeing to Texas and Idaho and Florida because the quality of life is awful, and it's going to get worse. And the guy they're going to protect today at the polls is a lying hypocrite. As we all know, he crushed small business in that state while
keeping his own open.
Right.
His
Keeping
winery
open.
Yeah.
Put his kids in private school and wouldn't open the schools, deferred to the teachers unions on everything, was seen, maskless at the French Laundry while he was destroying small restaurants and gyms throughout the state. Just the worst. I mean, he's just the worst. He's just done an awful job. As Larry Elder keeps saying, he keeps getting these endorsements, Newsom does, from Biden and Kamala Harris and Barack Obama. None of them says you have to vote against the recall because Newsom has done a great job for the state. They don't even say it.
Yeah.
They know they can't. He's been awful, but they don't want. This is what I don't understand. I understand there's Democrats who are loyal and all, but if there were ever a call for a change, just a demand for a change, for change's sake, let's see how the other guy does. Let's see what happens. They don't even have power, all the time in California. They don't have water all the time. I mean, he can't do the basics. The state is in really bad shape, and largely because of the way Gavin Newsom has run it. If you can't recall him, you can't recall anybody. It's over. Forget it. You can't forget it. Just, let's let them secede. California, let them secede.
I'd be happy with that. I mean, I loved it when there was this idea going around to separate California into 5 different states. I mean, I think that makes sense. California is so big, and the coastal cities are so different philosophically than way northern California or the desert parts of California. They're totally different, but you've got the elite power center on the coast that are ruling the entire state and really doing a lot of damage.
It's disgusting, if you want to be honest about it, because you have these billionaires who are propping up Newsom. You have the guy, whatever his name is, from the Netflix CEO. He's already given Newsom $3 million. Newsom could take all the money he wants in this to defeat the recall, and then he paid Obama to go out there and campaign, pretends he's paying him for a production deal or for whatever, documentaries, but he's just giving Barack Obama money, giving Newsom money. This guy doesn't get affected by crime or
That's the thing.
homelessness or bad schools.
You're exactly right. There's two different Californias. The elite are living a great life in California. It's a beautiful place. I mean, the
Right.
coast and landscape is gorgeous. And then what they do is they make the people who are struggling there fear that if a Republican comes in, they're going to take all the social programs away. So they stay in power. They get the best of both worlds, and a great place to live for themselves.
It's too bad that this won't work, because Elder I thought he ran a great campaign for what I saw.
Yeah.
And all they could come up with was, he's the black face of white supremacy. The LA Times, which is as corrupt as the New York Times, went after him. They didn't cover it when the woman in the gorilla mask threw an egg at him. The racist Democrats attacked him and called him racist, which is bizarre, but they didn't cover it. Again, that was a week ago. It would still be on the front page of every newspaper. It would still be the lead at CNN, ABC, if it were the other way around. If that were a black Democrat, if that were Stacey Abrams or Maxine Waters, and a white Republican in a gorilla mask through an egg, it would still be the lead story. We'd be talking about what it means to society as a whole. Is this white supremacy, racist violence? Is this going to be a trend? Every single Republican would demand they denounce this, condemn this act. As far as I know, Newsom hasn't even been asked about it. Forget every Republican in the country or every Democrat in the country. I don't even think Newsom was asked about it. One of his supporters threw an egg at Larry Elder, called him boy and son, and with a gorilla mask on. And he wasn't even asked to denounce it. It's amazing, the double standard, but
and more than they insulted his entourage. There, his entourage was getting hit, punched.
Like
I
she
mean,
took a swing
there was
at
actual
his security
violence.
guard.
Yeah.
As far as I know, we don't even know who she is. If that were again the other way around, it would be
a guerrilla hunt, right?
24/7. It would see all they would do on CNN all day, every day. They would out this person, identify her. They would talk about her family, her record, her groups, her associations. And again, there would be local state reps who would be stopped in the aisles at the State House saying, did you see that someone threw an egg at Stacey Abrams? How do you feel about that? As a Republican, what do you have to? It would be the only thing they cover. It would be nonstop. That's how you know how corrupt they are, because this was basically ignored by most of the mainstream media, just like the Biden phone call to Ghani asking him to lie was obviously impeachable. Obviously, it was unethical. They ignored it. Just said, if we ignore it, they cover the news with a pillow until it stops breathing, and then they move on. That's what they did here. Good luck. I want to commend Larry Elder and all his supporters.
Well,
they fought a good fight.
I got Elder talking about the media too. Do you want to hear
Let's listen to Larry Elder, who will probably lose today, but he gave it a hell of a run. Nice try. We need people like this, good people to try to upset the corrupt system. And he gave it his best shot. He's probably going to come up short, but a hell of an effort, Larry. Let's hear from Larry Elder.
I only mentioned her race because had I had a D at the end of my name, this would have been a hate crime. They would have had a manhunt for her. They'd be talking about this in Bangladesh. But because I have an R at the end of my name, a lot of the mainstream media didn't give a rip. Now, as I mentioned, she had on a gorilla mask. Now, at the risk of sounding sexist, I said to somebody, how do we know it was a mask? That took a while, didn't it?
That's pretty good. And he's 100% right. And he's articulate. He would be a great guy to lead the effort to just change all the things that have gone wrong in that state, to focus on, to take on the teachers union, the corrupt teachers union, the LA teachers union, by the way, that said they wouldn't go back to school. They gave a list of demands that they weren't going to go back to school until they did all these things, kids wear masks, and until they I forget until they stopped enforcing the border. They support open borders. The teachers union. I mean, and the other efforts are all about abortion and climate justice. They're not teachers. I mean, these are just activists, and they don't care about children. Teachers unions are so corrupt. We know that. We're not talking about rank and file teachers. We're talking about the union. They're the biggest supporter of Gavin Newsom. So they give him, millions. He carries their water. He keeps kids out of school. He continues to support, critical race theory and climate justice and all the other garbage that they are using to indoctrinate children. And the people of California are going to vote for more of the same today. It's very disappointing. But as I said yesterday, you know what that means? We can sit back now and enjoy as California just continues
Washes
to
into the sea.
to spiral downward and into a pit, an abyss of filth and crime and homelessness and drugs and bad schools, and it's just going to continue to deteriorate. And that's what the voters want. Apparently they want to live in hell. And in many places, I'm not where Reed, what's that? Reed Haskins?
Yeah.
Reed Haskins. And,
Haskins.
And, all the other, Zuckerberg and Dorsey and the rest of them, they'll be fine. It's the people, the people they allegedly care about. They're the ones who will suffer as a result of this vote to continue Gavin Newsom's disastrous reign.
When I was living there, there were two major cities that went bankrupt. I'd never heard of anything like that before. Vallejo,
Really?
which was pretty near, I was in Oakland, but pretty near where I was, went bankrupt while I was there. They could no longer pay for all of their everything that they were promising. There were pensions were through the roof,
Right.
all sorts of stuff, and they had to welch on a bunch of their commitments because of it.
Really? Yeah. Well, that's the future of the state, our largest state, and it's too bad because they had a choice, or they have a choice today. I'm sure they will. I shouldn't say. I would love it if they made the right choice and recalled that fraud Newsom. But they won't. They won't. They're as once again, bunch of racists out there. Clearly, the racists they feel threatened by a black man in power, so they're going to vote for the white supremacist Gavin Newsom, and he'll celebrate at the French Laundry Maskless tonight. So, but I'll still be watching and root for a upset because Larry Elder gave it a good shot, gave it a good try. All right, we got a bunch of stuff to get to. I want to do Bill Maher, my man. Yesterday we had so much to get to. Yesterday we made our big locals announcement.
That's true.
We're going to get an update from you today. I haven't talked about this off the air at all.
Yeah, we'll do it on there.
I want to hear what's going on.
Yeah, sure.
But we got to get to Bill Maher. But first, I want to get to Piers Morgan. And this is, as I always say, one of those stories that we could not do. We could not do if we were on the radio, if we were on local TV. There's a lot of the mob, the woke mob has a lot of power these days. They are the driving force behind cancel culture. If you cross them, they will destroy you. The part of the woke mob is the corrupt media, as we've gone over many times. The Boston Globe is the media wing of the woke mob. So is the New York Times, Washington Post. I mean, we've talked about this many times. Yesterday, we went through some of the really extreme examples of the cancel culture that is driven by or certainly assisted by the media. There's one issue where they're very much in the minority, where it is not a popular position among the general public. Doesn't matter. It's a very woke, very liberal position. The women, trans women in sports, trans women beating, and in some cases beating up biological women. I've told you the story that one day I was on the radio not that long ago. It's the one time the general manager called or texted me in the middle of the show and said, "Get off." And we were talking about biological men in track, big story in Connecticut every year. Was a big story this year going in the Olympics. There's a guy up in New Hampshire, I believe at Franklin Pierce, who was an okay runner when he was a male runner in college, transitioned and became dominant, just dominated, won the NCAA championship in track. CC Telfer, that's the one, the individual. I believe he was ranked 39th as a man in his race in his event, became a woman, and won the NCAA championship. We've gone over this before. There's over 1,000 guys, high school boys, who are faster than the fastest woman in the world in the 400 meter. Fastest woman in the world in 400 meter. There's over 1,000 kids, boys in America, one country, who are faster than her. It's not debatable. Men are faster. They have biological advantages. It's one thing, and we were talking about it. It wasn't even very contentious. We weren't like, really.
It was a news story.
It was a news story. It's big news. In Connecticut, it was always big news because those two individuals won, I believe, 13 state titles between the two of them after they transitioned and started beating up on the girls. It's bizarre to me in a number of ways. One being that this is not fair to girls. I mean, these people, these advocates, these activists, and I've debated it with, Alex Reamer and others. They don't care about girls. Girls don't matter. The girls who trained their whole lives for a chance to win a state championship in Connecticut had no shot. If you see it in the 100 meters, the girls aren't even at the 80-meter mark when the biological boys are finishing. They're getting trounced. They can't win state titles. They can't win championships, and sometimes those lead to college scholarships.
Sure.
They were denied that because of the needs, the wants of one or two people. One or two people transition, become girls, and we don't want to deprive them of the chance to just dominate the biological girls. All we have to do is say you can't do that. You can live happily ever after. You can dress and live as a girl. We'll call you your new name, and we'll make sure we get your pronouns right, and we will deny you nothing. You can participate in sports, but you can't participate in them against biological girls. You can go against the boys if you'd like, but you can't go against the girls because it's not fair. It's just, I know that's simplistic, but anyone who's seen a race where one of these kids in Connecticut won, or the runner in New Hampshire, CC Telfer, won, you look at it and you say, that's ridiculous. It's like an adult against a child in the hoop, playing hoop in the driveway.
Yeah.
It's just not fair. Well, that at some point in the last couple of years became controversial to say that's not fair. It's stating a fact, but it's became controversial, and I'm on the air and I get the text from, get off this subject, because as I've mentioned before, he was weak and he didn't want to, couldn't handle the blowback, because nothing gets the activists going like these trans issues. For some reason, it's more, they get more passionate and angry about these, denying a biological boy the chance to beat up on girls gets them more upset than anything. They're just really passionate activists who will not rest until girls' sports essentially are ruined or eliminated.
Well,
that's okay.
The systemic problem here is that sports is coupled with public school. It should never be. They should be private organizations, and in each private sporting organization can make its own rules, and you could decide whether you wanted to participate with them or not. But because it's coupled like this with public money and all that, and now it's a huge business, you're going to have these odd scenarios happen where these controversies come up. Well,
that's a complicated solution.
Of course.
A simple solution is, no, you can't do that. You can't beat up on the girls. It's just, it seems so bizarre. It's bullying. It is the definition of bullying. So you have all these advocates from, the LGBTQ community, activists who are essentially endorsing, supporting bullying, which is quite a switch from how it used to be. They would be obviously against bullying in any form, because that's used to be kind of the problem you had for LGBTQ youth, was they would get bullied.
Yeah.
Well, now the shoe's on the other foot, I guess, and they figure bullying's okay. And which brings us to the Piers Morgan column, because we could certainly find people, and I don't know if you're seeing them on the comments, but I get them on Twitter, who will get really upset about this at me, even though I'm not really saying anything controversial here. I'm just saying it's not fair. I'm stating a fact. It's not fair. Well, you could say that about track. If you want to say it about track, it's not fair. It hurts the girls' chances to win a championship. It hurts their feelings. Maybe it hurts their chance to get a scholarship. You can say it about weightlifting. We talked a lot about Laurel Hubbard, the weightlifter from New Zealand.
Yeah.
who transitioned, was a competitive male powerlifter, transitioned 7 years ago and became a Olympian for New Zealand. Did not fare well in the Olympics, but obviously took a spot from a biological woman. Obviously, it wasn't fair. He was born a male, had bigger muscles, stronger, just had all kinds of physical advantages. It didn't physically hurt the woman who got bumped from the team or the woman who lost to Laurel in the competition in New Zealand. It didn't physically hurt the kids in Connecticut who ran against these two biological boys. It wasn't fair. Clearly, it deprived them a chance to win. It was wrong. Clearly, it's wrong. It didn't physically hurt them, which brings us to Alana McLaughlin.
Yeah,
Alana
right.
McLaughlin is a MMA fighter. If you haven't seen this story, well, you're gonna have to look good for it, because this is the kind of thing the corrupt corporate media will ignore, or they won't mention it, which is why I tip my cap to Piers Morgan. Piers Morgan wrote a column about this, and he holds nothing back. He said it made him sick to his stomach to watch Alana McLaughlin beat up, what's her name? Celine Provost. Celine Provost is a female MMA fighter. She'd been fighting for years, I think 10, 12 years. Alana McLaughlin just started. This is her first fight. She took up MMA this year.
Yeah.
If you see a picture of Alana McLaughlin when she was a male, you can't say that this is right. I mean, you can't make the case that this is right and fair and just and real competition. Alana McLaughlin, she's 38. She was a special forces combat veteran.
Guy is stacked too.
And when you look at, he was absolutely jacked.
Yeah.
And tattooed, and he looks like a badass in his younger days when he was a green, I believe it was a Green Beret, decorated veteran. He became a she, and then decided to beat up on biological, lost some weight, dyed her hair pink, wore a t-shirt that says "Stop Transgender Genocide," trans genocide in the post-fight deal. Got his hand, her hand raised.
Oh yeah, look at that.
And she's still jacked, not like she was when she was a Green Beret, but still jacked. So they had this match. I believe it went 1 round. Was it 1 or 2 rounds? And ends with a chokehold. And it's sickening when you see this biological man wrapped around the female, Celine Provost, and just choking her till she taps out. And they raise her hand and she says, "Screw everybody that doesn't support me." How can anyone, I'd love to, hear from, look at that picture.
I know. He's got so much
madness,
muscle. Yeah.
Madness. And Piers Morgan wrote a column. Who's he write for?
Well, I've got this in the Daily Mail. That's where I'm looking at.
That's right. It was in the Daily Mail, his column, a blistering op-ed saying how nauseating it was to watch this. And it made me sick to watch a once male special forces combat veteran beat up a woman on TV. It's time to stop this trans sport insanity before women start being killed. Now, this is why Joe Rogan is not, in good standing with the woke mob, because he's an MMA commentator, obviously a former MMA fighter. And he watched this. This was years ago. How many years ago did that woman appear? She was a prominent MMA fighter, a trans woman, Fallon Fox. She was also a veteran, a Navy veteran, transitioned, became an MMA fighter, and won all but one fight. In one of them, Fallon Fox fractured another woman's skull.
Yeah.
This was a big deal. How many years ago was that? Can you check when she did that? Because was it Tuesday? Anyway, Joe Rogan obviously denounced that, obviously criticized that, and that is not acceptable. You must be either completely supportive or silent. That's your choice.
Looks like 2013 is when Rogan was talking about
so
it.
that was 8 years ago when Fallon Fox, a biological man fractured a woman's skull. Again, you gotta either support this or stay silent. For the most part, the media stays silent. It's wonderful to celebrate trans people when they're whatever, just like Elliot Page or Ellen Page. Celebrate them because they're coming out and they're transitioning, they're being themselves, and we're all for diversity and inclusion, except the Taliban. Have the Taliban named any trans people for their cabinet yet?
Not that I've
Not
seen.
yet. No. Maybe once they get the 64
condition.
million,
Yeah, condition of
is
64
you
million.
need to have a trans person in your cabinet. But you can't. I can attest to this. You literally cannot criticize this utter madness and survive in mainstream media. Piers Morgan will be attacked like he's never been attacked before for stating the obvious, that this is insane and unfair. But I find this subject to be so just maddening because you can't discuss it. We can't discuss it. We like to think, we're all for the free exchange of ideas and healthy, robust debate. We're not. This is verboten. If you dare do this, if we were sitting right now in a radio studio in Boston or New York or anywhere else, if we were on the air, we would be taken off the air. And you tell me one thing I've said in the last 20 minutes that's, I don't know, controversial or over the top or unfair or wrong. Go ahead, tell me. All I said was watching a biological man beat up a woman, choke her until she can't breathe is wrong. It's insane. How we accept that as a society, how we don't protect the vulnerable, the girls in Connecticut high school track, or the girls in college, New Hampshire college track, or this woman, Celine Provost, who got her ass kicked by a former Green Beret, badass, former male. How we all don't say this is madness. Why would you allow this? It was on TV. I didn't watch. Piers Morgan did.
So what would you say to the argument that Provost is a free country? She could have decided not to fight this woman?
Well, she can, but what? That's your solution?
I think
fight. If I were, it's not that unfair.
If I were a female MMA fighter and I were up against that, I would hope that I would say, listen, I'm not gonna fight that fight. This is not a fair fight. And I'm wondering if all of the women MMA fighters, biological women MMA fighters did the same thing, you might see some change.
I mean, it's a good question, but they would not be considered the hero in that.
No, they would not. They would get a lot of pressure on it. Yeah.
I mean, there's always these stories about girls who wrestle, high school wrestlers against boys, and boys will often take the forfeit, or just say, no, I'm not doing it. I don't want to, beat up a girl. And I give them credit for that. It's not right. You should have boys wrestling girls. But the choice is for the boy is either, beat up a girl, lose to a girl, or forfeit. So a lot of times you'll see them forfeit when their parents will be there and they'll support them, or coaches will support them, say, no, he doesn't want to, wrap his grab the girl's crotch or grab her breasts as part of a competition.
Yeah.
He just doesn't want to do it. So maybe the solution is everybody says, we're not doing it. But then it'll appear like you're not being fair to the poor trans
That's true
woman.
too. There's definitely going to be negative coverage of that if you take that stand, which does seem bizarre if you were raised like you or even me. Like you're raised to not beat up women.
I know.
Beat up vulnerable people.
I mean, it's one of those things where I think of, put it to the grandfather test. What would your grandfather say? Hey, look, Dad, see this person that used to be a Green Beret? That is a badass, strong, tough, mean, nasty guy who just declared himself a woman. I don't believe he had the went all the way with the surgery. He just took the hormones and passed the test and dyed his hair pink, and now he gets to beat the crap out of girls. It's just so wrong. And that's not the craziest part. The craziest part is you're not allowed to say it's wrong, or they'll come after you. They will try to destroy you, which they will do now. And someone like Piers Morgan, he'll survive because he's Piers Morgan. If that were just some guy writing a column
Canceled.
For whatever, the
Gone.
Local newspaper in that town, or that was just some guy,
Making $60K
TV,
at a radio
right,
station. Yeah.
he'd be gone. For
Gone.
daring to take the side of women against the bullies. That's what you can't do. You cannot defend women. You cannot defend girls. You must step in line, get in line, and support the right of the biological man to literally beat up a woman, beat up a girl. It's just crazy. It's the craziest part of the whole cancel culture movement. It really is. But hey, maybe this week, this Friday night, maybe my man Bill Maher will take this on. Don't be surprised, because this is the kind of thing that gets Bill Maher going. He knows he was a hardcore liberal. He was a hero to the left. He has stepped out of line and challenged them virtually every week. I mean, he still hates Trump. He still won't go all in. He's still generally a libertarian, and
he's more liberal than libertarian, I would say.
But he's a drug guy. He's talking about
that doesn't make a libertarian. Libertarian is
libertarians say just legalize all drugs,
well,
which is why libertarians are full of it.
No, libertarians are non-aggression principle.
Libertarians could never govern. It's great. You could debate in the faculty lounge, or you could debate.
Well, libertarian,
right
not libertarian.
You could never govern.
No, not libertarian as a party. I mean, I'm not a party libertarian. I'm a philosophical libertarian, which is someone who subscribes to
because I watched. We talked about it when it happened. They had their convention last time. Oh, it was probably 2016. The convention when they chose, I think it was Gary Johnson.
Yeah, probably
as their candidate. And one of the finalists stood up and said he defended the right of 6-year-old kids to drive drunk. Said that should not be illegal. There should be no laws against 6-year-olds driving drunk. And I said, this is not really going to work in practice. Maybe, I think it's wonderful in theory, but you could never govern. It's what you're doing is taking the easy way out. You want to sound, you want to sound erudite, and you want to sound cerebral, but you don't want to go all in with the, religious people on the right. You wouldn't want to team up with them.
Nah, it's just the religious people on the right aren't offering any good solutions anymore. They're not really for limited government, which they said they were. If the Republican Party were actually for limited government, then you'd see more libertarians voting for Republicans. But that's not what's happening.
I got a solution.
Yeah.
Outlawed 6-year-olds driving drunk. I mean, I know that's asking a lot for you libertarians.
Well, that's already happening. I think.
But one of the leaders of your party said
it's not my party. I'm not a part of the Libertarian Party. I am a philosophical libertarian, someone who ascribes to the non-aggression principle.
That's gutless.
That's not gutless at all.
No,
it's no.
You have to choose.
No, I choose that it's not right for the government to hurt people and take their stuff.
Okay, how would you run the country then?
What do you mean? Well,
how would you govern? This is about governing. This is not about having a debate.
How about we turn back the clock and remove the income tax? How about we do that?
Great. Right.
Let's do that.
Solution. No income tax.
Right.
How do you support the?
Well, there's voluntary ways to raise funds for military if you want to defend the borders.
Which is, again, you could never govern because it takes tough choices. You could never do.
Well, I mean, the government has gotten bigger and bigger over time. You would say that that's the case, right? More and more powerful all the time. Are you happy with that happening?
Of course not.
Of course not. So I think we can agree that we want the government smaller than what it is. So let's do that.
Let's do that. What do you want to eliminate? Everything?
How about the
income tax? You think I'd be against that?
No, of course you wouldn't. No.
But again, I'd certainly rather hang out with libertarians and liberals, but you are taking the easy way out. When pressed, they could never give you real solutions.
What do you mean? You want
just
a
said
bigger
eliminate
government.
the income tax.
No, I was just giving that as an example.
But that could never, ever happen. It would never, ever happen. It just wouldn't. So you can't.
I mean, there are many departments. There are many departments that the government has right now that doesn't need to be there, like the education department. Like, why do we have the government delivering mail? That makes no sense.
I would agree.
So let's cut that's easy. Those are easy ways to.
They don't have to get vaccinated, so they're all going to die.
Well, that's true.
COVID anyway. The
640,000
postal workers.
I don't want them to die. I just want them to work for private organizations. You don't need a government monolith to deliver mail.
How about this? No mail delivery on Saturdays would save billions.
Well, I just don't think the government needs to do that. We've got FedEx, we've got UPS, all these places. Do you know that it is illegal for them to deliver first-class mail? That's why they're not competing with the government.
You also have this thing called email.
Of course.
Absolutely, it's antiquated. I'm all for cutting. And I thought
there are tons of departments like that.
I'm all for cutting the defense budget. It's insane.
Absolutely.
Do you know how many military installations we have around the world? It's like 700 or 750 around the world. 750 military bases around the world. That is some serious pork, especially when we're not in a war. They're just everywhere.
Yeah.
And the thought of cutting the defense budget a nickel gets people all riled up, and you can't do that. Don't you want to protect the country? Well, we just saw who we are paying for. We saw the likes of Milley and Austin, the rest of these incompetents. So I'm all for cutting the defense budget.
Okay,
and
there we are
every
again.
Other budget, period. I'm all for cutting.
There we go.
You don't eliminate it and let 6-year-olds drive drunk. That's insane.
I think you're arguing one tiny thing that I've never even said was a good idea.
I'm just telling you how crazy libertarians
are.
Well,
not libertarians. That particular libertarian.
I blew off Bill Maher yesterday. I got to get to him today.
Well, I'm going to keep you going, and you're going to have to blow him off today. You want to talk about locals too?
Oh shoot!
Haha!
Why'd you do this?
I didn't do it. You brought it up. You were giving me an opinion that I never gave. I never created.
All right. Screw it. Let's do Bill Maher.
Okay.
Bill Maher on his show Friday night took on the Black National Anthem. If you missed it, and I did, I generally start the game at kickoff when I'm watching. I'm recorded. But if you missed it, around the NFL on Sunday, they played 2 national anthems. I bet you didn't even know we had 2, but we play the Black National Anthem and then the regular national anthem. I don't think that's going to be a weekly thing. I think it was an opening day thing, but it's just crazy. Even Bill Maher knows it's just crazy. We now have a Black National Anthem. Everything we do now in the name of, I guess, diversity or inclusion is about separating people. It's about dividing people along racial lines. Black, as Bill Maher points out, black graduations from colleges, black news, black this, white that. I mean, it just, when do we have separate bathrooms and separate water fountains?
The liberals want segregation. You're absolutely right, and it is the way to create division between people. That's they're doing it on purpose. The power thing.
Seemed like one of the most basic things we could agree on, that Martin Luther King was right. Judge a man on the content of his character. Well, we've gotten away from that.
Yep.
And now judging someone on the content of their character is somehow wrong. It's somehow racist. It just, we flipped the whole thing on its head. And you know what's racist now? Being colorblind. I mean, literally being colorblind. I can honestly say I evaluated Cam Newton versus Mac Jones just on the play, on how good they were, on their stats, as we talked about yesterday, on their decision making, on their accuracy. It didn't enter. And then immediately when I say Mac Jones is 1,000 times better than Cam Newton, invariably you get these tweets, and I ignore them or block them. It's not a big deal. I'm not complaining. I'm just saying you immediately go, oh, you just like him because he's white.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't like him because he's black. Well, what? Honest to God, football, the NFL is as colorblind as you get. But that's not acceptable. To be colorblind, and this is completely Orwellian, to be colorblind is somehow racist.
I know.
To judge people on their merits, on their content of their character is wrong. You must, if you want to be in good standing with the woke mob, with the mainstream media, you must judge people on their race, on the color of their skin. It's madness. It could be the craziest thing to come out of this current culture.
Yeah.
And, fortunately, there are some brave souls. Again, Pierce Morgan, very brave what he did, come out against beating up girls. Bill Maher comes out against dividing people along racial lines. And I guarantee you the mob is not happy with Bill Maher. But let's hear some of Bill Maher reacting to the NFL playing 2 national anthems.
To me, when people say to me sometimes like, boy, you go after the left a lot these days. Why? I'm like, because you're embarrassing me. That's why I'm going after the left in a way you never did before, because you're inverting things that I'm not going to give up on being liberal. This is what these teachers are talking about, that you're taking children and making them hyper aware of race in a way they wouldn't otherwise be. I mean, I saw last night on the football game, Alicia Keys sang "Lift Every Voice and Sing," which now I hear is called the Black National Anthem. Now, maybe we should get rid of our national anthem, but I think we should have one national anthem. I think when you go down a road where you're having 2 different national anthems, colleges sometimes now many of them have different graduation ceremonies for black and white, separate dorms. This is what I mean, segregation. You've inverted the idea. We're going back to that under a different name. But
that's Sean Hannity from last night on Fox News.
Oh, no, right.
I still think Bill Maher would be a great choice for that 7 p.m. slot leading into Tucker Carlson. I don't think he's got a good gig. He just re-upped with HBO. And I've said many times, I hated him for years. I mean, when he said the 9/11 hijackers had courage. I mean, just said a lot of, I don't know, things that pissed me off, I admit. But now, you know what he is? He's smart. I mean, he's still liberal. He's still a libertarian. He still wants to, legalize drugs. He still hates Trump. But he's smart enough to know that nothing good can come of dividing people along racial lines and having two national anthems and two graduations and, two separate dorms for black and white. It's just, what could possibly be good, be encouraging, be healthy about that?
He has some intellectual honesty there and curiosity. And unfortunately, a lot of people just go right along a party line and they don't think about very specific issues, and he does. And so I give him credit for that. He's not a libertarian, but I give him credit for that.
And I will say he's going to talk about the transgender fighter. I'll predict this week or very soon he will do it. He'll read Piers Morgan. He'll watch the video of the guy of whatever Alana McLaughlin choking out the girl and say, this is crazy. Those are the kind of things that get him going. A black national anthem, I understand. It was just one time, I think. But the concept, can't you just play a song and say, we want to play this song, maybe do it at halftime?
I think black ears are different than white ears, though, don't you think?
So what is the other anthem? Is it just the white, or is it not the white anthem? Is it the old anthem, the traditional anthem? And then we have the black anthem, black national anthem. Just crazy.
And does the white national anthem work for all other races too, or is it just predominantly?
Why don't we have a Hispanic
Caucasian
or Asian national anthem?
We're gonna have like a 50-minute pregame here.
Well, I'll continue to ignore that. Start it when the kick comes, and it's just people trying to fend off the mob. Someone went to Roger Goodell and said it would be really nice to do the black national anthem, and Roger Goodell said, "What if I say no? Get out of my office. We got an anthem. We don't need two. Then they will come after me. Then I'll be branded. I'll be a target of the mob, and I can't do that. I don't want to do that." So, like many corporations, the NFL gave in and just said, "Okay, we'll do it. We'll continue to end racism on the end zone," which I think is really effective. I feel like we're pretty much through this whole racism thing since the NFL put it on the helmets. Don't you think it's really made a big difference?
It did make a big difference.
Huge difference. And they paid it in the end zone. And I think a lot of people that go to games, they're really racist. They hate black people, and they read that and they say, you know what? I think I'm going to change my ways because, it's on the back of that player's helmet. It is the ultimate, the definition of virtue signaling. But again, good job, Bill Maher. We'll be watching on YouTube this Saturday morning to see if he takes on the trans issues or what he does. All right, we made a big announcement yesterday. We're on locals.com. Locals, the platform started by Dave Rubin to help people like us avoid the mob, avoid the activists when they come after us to try to get us canceled. That's one way we are fighting back. How did it go yesterday?
I think really well.
Yeah,
I mean, we have a ton of people in the community. A ton of people have subscribed. So yeah, I think people were interacting. Like, I encourage people to write their own posts there. You can't just like a Facebook group. People were commenting on posts that we made. I did like a short little live stream just to kind of test out the equipment.
How did it go?
Oh, I thought it was great. We had people in there. I wanted to test out the equipment and stuff before we went live there on Friday, just to make sure everything was working. But I also thought it was a good kind of extra thing we could give to your fans. I just talked about some of the phases of where we've come since I've started, since we've been doing this, and then kind of where we're going next a little bit. So I thought it was great. People were there and interacting, and
I just
like it.
Clicked on Twitter, and there's your video.
Oh, there it is.
What are we calling this? What about Bob?
Psycho Bob is
Psycho Bob. There it is.
That went out this morning. Yeah.
See, that's very creative. This is Carano's telling the story of Psycho Bob.
Had some help with Bailey, one of our awesome interns on that video. Thanks, Bailey.
And thanks to everybody who subscribed yesterday, including a guy. I don't know if you've ever heard of this guy, Kirk Minahan. Kirk Minahan, yeah.
Yeah, he was giving me a little crap on locals yesterday. But thanks a lot, Kirk, for coming in. That was kind.
It used to be Dino's thing. He'd mispronounce people's names.
Oh, really?
Because he thought it was,
he thought that was funny.
Disrespectful. Yeah, insulting to say Turk Minahan. Well, he subscribed, and we appreciate it, and hope many others do because
thanks, Kirk.
Because we're gonna be
We'll be there a lot doing stuff.
producing things for you. We'll be coming up with things for you and all the people who subscribed and all the people who joined us on Locals. You can still do that. Locals.com. Is that how you do it?
Yeah, you can go to locals.com and search Callahan Show or the Gerry Callahan Show. Gerry Callahan, it'll all come up. Or just the GerryCallahanShow.locals.com is the actual URL. But either way, go there and search, find it.
And if you have questions, you can tweet at Matt Carano.
You can
there
message me
with all the answers. But good job, Carano. And intern Graham.
So Graham and Bailey both helped out a lot
Bailey.
the entire way through, and then Bailey helped produce the video that released this morning, which was fun.
Great job, Graham and Bailey. And you know who else I want to thank? I want to thank Pete Gustin, our voice guy.
Thanks, Pete.
He's he's the best voice guy in the business. And he's always there to help.
One of the best.
Yeah. He's you haven't quite reached his heights.
No,
Maybe someday. He's you could check him out on Blind Surfer. I think it's blindsurfer.com.
Yeah.
He's a surfer. He's blind. He's a great voice guy and a good friend. And thanks to Jay for the music, and thanks to everybody for listening, watching, and commenting and joining us on Locals. We appreciate it. I'm Gerry Callahan. This is the Callahan Show, and we will do it again tomorrow.